Number one is get to know yourself. Now, keep in mind that throughout life you have been changed. The abuse that you have experienced as a person with autism has molded you and made you into something that is not what you would have been had that abuse not been there. So, what we want to do is we want to go back and try to get centered, to be real who we really are. Now, keep in mind that these things don't just apply to people with autism, but we are approaching these things from the perspective of people with autism. So, number one is get to know yourself. And I got to tell you, very quickly before we dig into this, I got 12 points, and I could have had 1,200. I just had to stop because I think of something and I think of something else. So let's go to 12, and we're going to stop there. Not going to spend a lot of time, but I think these things are important, and they're just based on what I have learned from experience, my 70 plus years as a person with autism. And notice I didn't say suffering with autism. I actually like being who I am. That is because, number one, I've gotten to know myself. That's not a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's just a realistic thing. But our self-perception is largely formed by others, particularly in our earlier years. So when I was a kid in school, I was fortunate in that I didn't face a lot of physical bullying. In fact, the other guys probably got harassed physically more than I did because I was just kind of out of it. I just wasn't a participant. And they would just fight, tussle around, whatever, and I just, kind of invisible kid. But still, people would say things, they would treat you as if you were nobody because you were nobody in their perspective, in their sense. You were just kind of, again, that invisible kid who sat by himself, who said nothing to anybody ever unless he was first spoken to, and then when he responded, speaking of myself, the response was a very awkward and unnatural tone because I didn't know what to say. But we have this perception that was formed, a lot of it, in those early years. And the thing that I learned about myself that I mislearned about myself, was that I'm just nobody because everybody treats me that way. And sometimes they would say things to reaffirm their feelings about me, their perception of me, and I would internalize those things that they said, the way they treated me, the way they talked to me. And again, I got to emphasize, it's not just people with autism who experience this. I think everybody does to some degree. But it's more pronounced with people with autism, and we are focusing on the special needs of people with autism. It's time to get to know the real me. It's time to get to know the real you. It's past time. Number two is this. Take yourself up a peg or two. If you have watched my videos in the past, I've mentioned this now and again, that people love to take other people down a peg or two because nature has bred us to be social climbers. We climb that social hierarchy. And climbing the social hierarchy involves kicking other people down so we can get above them. Now, as people with autism, most of us are either on the bottom rung or we're not in the hierarchy at all. So we need to understand that when we talk about taking ourselves up a peg or two, it's because we haven't even been allowed to participate. And when we talk about taking ourselves up a peg or two, it's not necessarily in the social hierarchy. It's just bringing ourselves to a point where we acknowledge who we really are. And our self-perception typically is way below that. So, let's bring ourselves up just to realism, to reality. Number three is this: be proud of what you have accomplished. And when I wrote this, I was thinking, I know how people are going to respond to this because I kind of respond this way. I haven't accomplished anything, So if I were to make a list of my accomplishments, I'd have a blank sheet of paper. You know why? Because I've been taken down a rung or two so often that I don't think I accomplish anything. Now, hang on a second. I did get out of bed this morning. That's an accomplishment, right? No, I didn't. When we talk about accomplishments, I'm not talking about being the wealthiest person on the planet, because there's only one of those out of 8 billion. There's only one. And I will guarantee you, it's not me and never will be. What about the most attractive person on planet Earth at this very moment? So when we talk about accomplishments, I'm not talking about wealth, I'm not talking about appearance, I'm not talking about social standing, I'm not talking about these things where we are far and above everybody else. I'm talking about things that we accomplish. So I get up this morning and I took a walk. My plan was to jog 3 miles, which I do every 4 days. But don't know why, but for some reason I got 2 miles and I got sick. So I walked home. But I accomplished something. I jogged 2 miles. So what if you jog from your bed to the refrigerator? Slow jog. Put it on your sheet of paper. That's an accomplishment. Did you feed yourself? There are people in this world, a lot of them, some of them tiny little babies, some of them are old. Some of them have been in serious critical accidents. They cannot literally feed themselves, but you can. And you did. That's an accomplishment. Write it down. Fed myself. And what you're going to discover, and I'm a strong advocate of journaling rather. So when we write these things down, they force them to the forefront of our minds. And we start writing down these tiny little accomplishments. I didn't say big accomplishments or major accomplishments. And those things are fleeting anyhow. I'm just talking about everyday, common accomplishments. They're like snowflakes. They accumulate. And when you start thinking of all the things that you have done in your life, past, present, and future, did you know, you may not know this, you may not be aware of this, did you know you became fluent in a foreign language? Probably by the time you were 4 or 5 years old. Now, if you're an English speaker, you're saying English is not a foreign language. Actually, yes, it is. Unless you're a native English speaker, it's a foreign language. When I visited China, there were people who would come up to me, Chinese who would come up to me and engage in conversation because they wanted to practice their English. But you learned it. That's an accomplishment. It's a foreign language to them. And hey, you were good at it before you even went to school. Yeah, you have that ability to do that. So if you stop and list all the things that you have accomplished, you know how to drive? I can drive. Hey, I can drive a stick shift. Maybe you can't do that. Okay, so I'm gloating a little bit. I'm flexing. Part of that's because when I was a teenager, that's what we had, My first car was a 62 Chevy, and I still got it, by the way. I've had it since 69. I've had it a long time, over half a century. And I drove a Volkswagen. I learned how to drive those stick shifts, but if you didn't, doesn't matter. You learned how to drive a car, right? Do you know how to ride a bicycle? Do you know how to swim? I don't. I could probably learn if I had to, but then again, I might drown. I don't want to find out. So if you can swim, you do something I can't do. I mean, we have all kinds of accomplishments, but we have been beaten down so often, so persistently, that we don't even pay attention to those things, but simply by writing them down and acknowledging them, we realize that, hey, we are accomplished people. And guess what? Virtually everybody on the planet is an accomplished person, and you are not the exception. So accept it. Take yourself up that pig. Number 4 is replace rumination. This is a particular problem for people with autism. Everybody ruminates, as far as I know. Rumination is when we stop and think about past, usually past offenses. Things negative in our past, and they stick in our minds. But because we're autistic, we got a lot of those things. We got a lot to think about. And dwelling on those thoughts is not healthy mentally. Now it's not other people tearing us down, it's us tearing ourselves down. And the whole objective is to avoid abuse, but we're abusing ourselves through ruminating. We become them. We're one of them. I don't want to be one of them. I want to be somebody who lifts me up to reality, not being arrogant or narcissistic, but just being realistic with who I really am. But rumination gets in the way. So how do you deal with that? How do I deal with it? Well, the way that I deal with it is I replace it with something else. Now, the simple thing for me to do is listen to music that I enjoy. Now, don't listen to music that I enjoy. It's kind of like you taking my prescription drugs. Don't do that. You need to prescribe yourself music or something else that you enjoy. Now, the music that I enjoy, I like harmony music, the Beach Boys, the Four Seasons, that type of music. I can listen to that all day long. Some Southern gospel music. I like some country music. Not a lot of it, but some of it, yeah. It really sounds good to me. So I notice when I'm listening to that music, it replaces the rumination. Now, it may not be listening to music. It could be reading a novel, could be studying, could be getting yourself involved in something that occupies your mind. If you are a tinkerer, maybe you need to tinker. Whatever it is, but rumination, it's not going to go away, in my opinion. It's something that can be managed. It's something that doesn't have to preoccupy your brain 24/7. Number 5 is look in the mirror of others' reactions. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but there's something in Proverbs, I think maybe Psalms, that says something to the effect that as glass answers to glass, or as a mirror answers to a mirror, so your face is answered by another person's face. You can see yourself in their expression. You can see what they are thinking of you in the way they look at you. And if you are autistic, number 1, you probably have a difficult time reading expressions. And if you do read expressions, typically the feedback that you're getting is not positive, but it tends to be accurate. So at least you know what other people are thinking of you if you can pick it up. So one thing that I've learned over the years is to try to affect the expression of other people when they encounter me. Maybe something, I'm really not good at smiling, but I try to look cheerful. I try to sound positive. I try to sound upbeat. I try to draw that out of other people. And again, as a person who's autistic, I don't like small talk, but I have learned to force myself to do it anyhow. It's a skill that you develop. Most people, it just comes natural. Most people, they know how to talk, they know how to walk, they know how to breathe. But imagine that you were born, you didn't know how to breathe. You had to teach yourself. That's what it's like to make small talk for me, probably for you. I had to learn how to do it, and I'm still not good at it. And I still find it cumbersome and not very comfortable to do. But it's a courtesy to other people. I do it for them, not for me. And it's fun when you're doing it with this thought in mind. I'm going to change this person's expression for the positive. Now, a lot of people do this intentionally, try to change somebody's expression for the negative. They like to be mean and gruff and nasty and get that dirty look on your face because they're controlling you. Okay, fine. But I want to control people positively. I want to see a smile on their face because they saw a smile on my face. So look in the mirror of others' reactions, and that's a way to develop your own. It's really, I think, a good strategy to develop your own self. And then you get the feedback from them, and you know what? They're now building you up positively. It's no longer abuse, but they're helping to. Is unabuse, is that a word? I don't know. What is the antonym for abuse? Whatever it is, That's what happens. Number 6 is this: ask, who am I? I mean, really. So number 5, look in the mirror. What we're doing is we're asking other people, or we're looking for their opinion of us. Who do you think I am? And all you have to do is look at them. They will tell you in their expression who they think you are. You don't have to ask them. But that's not who you really are. Your perception, the way that you are perceived by others, this applies to everybody, is never 100% accurate. What I want to know is, who am I really? Now, when I was, many years ago, I was a pastor for 12 years, and young people in particular would want to know, what is God's will for my life? And the answer really, they would make it really complicated, and they would stress out over it. But the answer is really kind of simple. What are you good at? A tow truck? What's that for? Well, what was it designed to do? It was designed to tow other vehicles. So that's what it's for. So my tractor trailer is not to tow other vehicles. It's designed to carry stuff. Lots of stuff. My car is not designed to do either one of those things. It's designed to get me and my wife and whoever else happens to be with us from point A to point B. So what are you designed to do? Well, whatever you're good at. If you're not good at towing, well, you're not a tow truck. If you're not good at hauling stuff, well, you're not a semi-tractor trailer, you're not an 18-wheeler. What are you? So, well, what are you good at? And if you say, I'm not good at anything, all right, but I don't believe you. I don't even know who you are, but I know better than that. So ask, who am I really? And the answer to the question is, what are you good at? Number 7 is, what do you enjoy doing? This is kind of like when we were talking about rumination. But to undo the damages that abuse has caused you, we need to ask ourselves and to get to know ourselves. What are those things that we really enjoy? I know people, particularly women, they love to knit. There's something about the neurology of females that they have this ability to do repetitive work over and over and over again. Now, when I was growing up, not so true today, but when I was growing up, when you'd go into a bank, the tellers were all women because they had to do repetitive, this is my theory, but they had to do repetitive stuff like count money. And they could do it. They just count and count. They're very good at working on assembly lines. Yes, I know there are some women who are exceptions. I also know there's some women who are over 6 feet tall. But I don't know any guys who knit. I just don't. I know guys who like to work on cars, and I know there are women who do, but not very many. So you go into a bank, they're all women. You go into the auto repair shop, and they're all men. They're doing what they enjoy doing, what they're good at. Number 8 is be yourself. There's a place for masking. Masking is not always hypocrisy. Sometimes it's just a matter of courtesy. You're not feeling good, you feel bad. You don't want to dump that on other people, so you kind of fake it, And you may feel sick, you may be a little depressed, but as a courtesy to other people, you're going to be nice to them. But that's an exception. By and large, we need to find out who we are, and we need to be ourselves. And if other people don't like us, that's too bad. And I guarantee you, it doesn't matter if you're autistic or not, somebody out there doesn't like you for no good reason. Now, if you're autistic, you got a lot of those people in your life. And because of that, we tend to try to adjust to fit them. We're not being ourselves. They are molding us. They are making us into people that we are not. I want to be me, period. Now, I use the analogy of an eclipse. There's the sun, and the moon comes in front of the sun, moves in front of it, and it covers it. That's an eclipse. They are aligned. So I want to align my perception of myself, not as over positive, not as over negative. I just want to be real. And I think that's where true happiness can be found, in the eclipse, in reality. No, it's not always a pretty picture. It's not always a bad picture. You know that because you made that list of your accomplishments. But you're not the best at everything, you know? Just be real. Number 9 is know your entitlements. And I knew when I wrote this that modern psychology, people who feel entitled are generally thought of as being narcissistic and sometimes even psychopathic. But then I thought about it a little more, and I thought, you know, we respect people who we put in prison enough that we feed them, we shelter them. I'm not saying you want to go to prison, but we give them, or we're supposed to give them, a measure of safety because, you know, they're living with a bunch of bad guys. And we treat prisoners better than we treat people with autism as a society. Now, the guys in prison may not treat each other better than they treat us, but as a society, we have rules, we have standards that every human being is entitled to something. And that's true of everybody, not just you, not just me, but there are valid entitlements. So what are you entitled to? You are entitled to be treated with respect. That doesn't mean people are going to treat you with respect, but it does mean this. Are you ready? Pay attention. This is really important. You can treat yourself respectfully. Doesn't matter if everyone else does or not. You can respect yourself. And you are entitled to that. Again, we're not talking about arrogance. We're not talking about narcissism. We're talking about just reality. You are a human being, and as such, you're entitled to be respected as a human being. What makes us the good guys? You know, I was thinking about this the other day. Anytime America has been engaged in warfare with another country, we always perceive ourselves as being the good guys and the opponents as being the bad guys. What makes us the good guys? Well, what makes us the good guys is we have this sense of civility. We have respect for human dignity. That's what makes us the good guys. And what makes the other guys the bad guys is they don't have those things. So what is it about you that you should, number 10, appreciate? Appreciate yourself. It's kind of like entitlement. But just appreciate who you are. Don't ask permission from someone else to appreciate yourself. Don't ask permission from yourself to appreciate yourself. Don't expect or wait for permission to appreciate yourself because it ain't coming. Or if it does, it's going to be in tiny little drops, few and far between. But to not appreciate you, those aren't little drops, those are waves. I mean, we're talking thunderstorm. We're talking hurricane. People will not appreciate you, and for what it's worth, they generally don't appreciate each other. It's not just you. Don't take it personally. But you can appreciate yourself, just like you can respect yourself. And again, we're talking about self-confidence, which is a positive thing. We're not talking about narcissism. Said this earlier a couple times. Not talking about arrogance. We're talking about having confidence. As I mentioned, I think in the last video, a lot of times people with autism, we lack confidence so much that, at least in my experience, couldn't even walk in a straight line. You're so self-conscious as opposed to self-confident. And often I would hear preachers, they'd get in the pulpit and the pound and thunder about arrogance, and they were so arrogant in the way they would do it. I kind of wanted to put a mirror in front of them and say, hey, look at yourself. Just beating people down. You know, we need to be lifted up a peg or two. Number 11. Years ago, probably 30, 40 years ago, I read a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. Probably one of the best books that was ever written, but there's a little flaw in that, and that is that everybody's not okay all the time. The people who abused you, that is not okay. They are being, or they were being, jerks. And I know you have a better term than jerk for those people, and it's appropriate. So somebody needs to write a book that says, entitled, I'm okay and you're a jerk. Because that's what they are, and they need to be called out on it, but only when applicable. You know, people, they love to put other people down, as we've said already. And I don't mean to belabor this point, but we need to acknowledge our own self-worth. And we need to acknowledge the worth of others and appreciate others and respect others and realize that others are entitled to be treated civilly. But we also need to understand that some people, they're jerks. What do you do with these people? What do you do with narcissists, with psychopaths? The best thing to do that I have learned in my 70 plus years is go gray rock. That is the pop psychology term for ignore these people. I mean, as if they did not exist. So when they approach you, they may as well approach a rock. No response, just ignore them. Not always possible. But that's the best way, at least in my experience, my opinion, how to treat jerks. We need to come to full-term acknowledgement that some people, particularly those people who abused us, they were just wrong. They were jerks. We are not the bad guys. They are the bad guys. Take that shame, throw it right back in their face. Not literally, don't throw things at people. Number 12 is this. This is just kind of encompasses everything, and that is be real. Don't be negative. Don't be positive. Be accurate. Nothing wrong with positive thinking if it's accurate. Nothing wrong with negative thinking if it's accurate. Accurate thinking, okay, you know what rose-colored glasses are? You put on your rose-colored glasses and the world looks rosy. People with autism tend to put on gray-colored glasses because we have been taught, actually we don't put them on, somebody else has put them on us. We don't even know we're wearing them. But we have been taught that we live in a drab, dreary, negative, hateful, spiteful world. There is some truth in that, but it's not that way all the time. But then we look at ourselves, looking in the mirror. And when we look in the mirror, we still got on those gray-colored glasses, and that's the way we perceive ourselves. So take off your glasses, not replace them with rose-colored glasses, but take off your gray-colored glasses that somebody else has put on you, and just look clearly. Just look at the world, more importantly, look at yourself the way you truly are. And I could say this in closing. It seems to me that it's virtually impossible to look at the world realistically unless we first look at ourselves realistically. If you got something out of this video, you are invited now to subscribe, be a part of our family. Give this video a thumbs up. That helps the algorithms, by the way, and encourages me personally. And if you want to encourage others, then leave a comment in the comment section. Engage somebody in a conversation, and we'll see you all next time.